We are in a series, as Vanessa said, that we're doing an abbreviated service tonight so we can get to the business meeting. But I would say the business meeting is part of the service tonight, right? That's just a break for people that are visiting. But visitors are welcome to stay, but we just want to create a break for visitors to go if they want to. But talking about God's faithfulness is part of the celebration of worship. And so in this series, what if, we're asking the question, what if Jesus meant everything that he said? When we read the Bible, is there something in my heart that says, I believe that he said it? And so we're trying to differentiate between believing and following. A lot of us, like myself, I grew up believing everything. I grew up believing everything for the most part that I believe today, but I wasn't following those beliefs. And I wasn't following Jesus in those beliefs. And so this series is to stir you up a little bit, to help you, one, maybe discover some beliefs that you don't yet have, but even more importantly, the ones that you do, are you walking them out? Because we get to these verses like in James that I don't know about you, but it's incredibly sobering. It's going to pop up on the screen and we're going to read it together. Is it there? There she is. 2:19. It says, you say you have faith, for you believe that there is one God. Now, you can put any statement of belief in there. And I love, this is Jesus' older brother, James. He says, good for you. That's great you believe that. Listen to what he says. Even the demons believe this, and they tremble in terror. And so we could have made the tagline of this series, let's do better than the devil. You with me? Let's do better than the demons. This is James saying, hey, they also believe. So just saying you believe it, there needs to be more that comes from it. And so I hope this series is going to stir you up. There is a world of difference between believing Jesus said something and living our lives according to everything he taught. Are our lives gripped by the reality that Jesus meant everything that he said? And so each week, we're taking a statement. This is kind of a part one and part two. I'm going to, not next weekend, that's Revive Weekend, but the weekend after that, I'm going to pick up part two of this. But tonight, we're going to talk about treasures, earthly treasures, treasures in heaven. And it comes from Matthew 6:19 to 20. Matthew 6:19 to 20. It says, don't store up treasure. This is Jesus talking in the Sermon on the Mount. Treasures here on earth, where moths eat them and rust destroys them, and where thieves break in and steal. Verse 20, store your treasures in heaven where moths and rust cannot destroy, and thieves will not break in and steal. Now you can, right? I hope you're not surprised that this is a great text for the business meeting, right? To talk about money and resources. And if you brought a visitor here and you're thinking, come on, I've been talking to my friend or my neighbor to come to church all this time, and maybe one of the reasons why they don't come to church is because they have a complaint that a lot of people often have a complaint. Maybe somebody's tuning in, watching online for the first time, that the church is always talking about money. But I'm not sure it's the problem that churches talk about money. I think one of the problems that people have is that the church isn't honest about the fact that it talks about money. So I just want you to hear me say up front tonight, we want your money. Yeah, we want your money. Isn't that refreshing? We're not hiding it. And you know, the idea that the church wants your money, I don't even think that's the hang up for people. I don't. I think the hang up is that people are suspicious about where the money goes. And I think people are concerned about, do they want my money for the right reasons? And so for us, the annual business meeting is a central part of our year, every year, and has been since we came in 2007, because we don't want people to have doubts about where the money goes and why we ask for it. And so we say, this is it. All the money that came in and all the money that went out, and this is how it was used. And so I hope that tonight is going to be a refreshing conversation with you. And then in 2 weeks again, that maybe you've never been in a church where you were excited for a conversation about money. I hope that happens for you tonight. I love how Jesus talks about this idea of moths. Did anybody else grow up with mothballs in your house, or is it just me? Like, is that even a thing anymore? We had a cedar closet with mothballs in it where all the wool coats were kept and all of my father's suits. I can still smell it in my nose, right? Mothballs, right? And so now we don't have mothballs. We just have holes in our clothes. But I would rather have holes in my clothes than the smell of mothballs in my nose. Right? This is what Jesus is talking about. 2,000 years ago, Jesus is trying to teach us something about things. And he's using the idea of moths and rust and thieves because he's trying to differentiate between earthly things and heavenly things. He's trying to use everyday language and the struggle of the human experience to help people differentiate between what is an earthly thing and what is a heavenly thing. And so what he's describing here are things that are temporary and things that can be taken. Things that are temporary and things that can be taken. Things that are temporary means that at some point they will erode. At some point they're vulnerable to decay. They're not going to last. Or if it's something that can be taken from you, if someone can take it out of your possession, remove it from your possession. Jesus is saying those are earthly things, things that are temporary and things that can be taken. You know what no one can take from me is my sense of devotion and the testimony that I have of being a father. It doesn't erode. It can't be stolen. How about my devotion and the testimony of my life of being a husband? These are heavenly things. How about the relationships that you have that are meaningful to you? When you and I get to heaven, Jesus is not going to talk to us about the color that we picked to paint the room in our den. You tracking? He's not going to talk to you about the interior of that GMC Denali with the Duramax and the Allison transmission, as much as I want to have one of those and someone to talk to me about it. Those things are temporary and they can be taken. He's going to talk to us about the things that are heavenly, things that are here that matter there. And those are never things that are temporary and things that can be taken. You understand? He's trying to say to us, there are earthly things and there are heavenly things. And you're going to have both of them in your life. The question is there balance? The question is, has one begun to displace the other? I remember when we moved my mom out of her house. She lives with my sister now. She has dementia. And we sold things. We let people come in and just take things because we wanted someone to have them. Their clothes were donated, right, to shelters. We did all of those things. We still fill to overflowing the biggest sled dumpster that you have ever seen in your life. And I'm throwing things in there, right? And I'm looking at it, and there's memories that are attached to those things. If you've ever cleaned out a house like that because you've moved out a parent or because a loved one passed, you realize that there are just a lot of things in this life that are temporary. They're earthly things. And one day when we're going, so Vanessa and I have a conversation, we cannot do this to our kids. But of course, that's exactly what we're going to do to our kids, right? Because we've done nothing to clean things out, right? We have all of these things, right? We have all these things. And so this is what happens. Your kids are going to take all those things after you're gone, and they're going to sell those things. And you know what they're going to do with that money? They're going to buy more things. Yeah. That's how it works. And then we're going to buy, and then it just from generation to generation, we pass things upon things upon things. And Jesus is saying, don't just pass things down. From generation to generation that are temporary, pass down things that are heavenly. Jesus is an anti-material possession. He understands that all those temporary, takeable things enable us to build meaningful lives by his design. Jesus is saying that if in our effort to acquire temporary, takeable things, that we neglect storing our treasures in heaven, then we aren't really following him. He's saying, I get it. You need to have things. You should want things. I created the world that way. But do not have those things at the expense of the other. Don't do it. When he's talking about storing, he's not talking about a practice. He's talking about a posture of the heart. He's not saying that when you give money to the church that you get credited with money in heaven so that when you get there, you're going to have the money that you need. Can we just agree that we hope that when we get to heaven, that it's not an economy that's based on money? Right? We're going to be disappointed. Why is there a pearl missing from the pearly gate? Because somebody ran out of money. They plucked it out. And people chipping away at the streets of gold, right? We understand. God isn't using monetary things to tell us that there is money in heaven. He's trying to teach us about value and things that are important to us. So when he's talking about storing, he's not talking about a practice. He's talking about a heart posture. He's saying, are you living your life just chasing after things that are earthly at the expense of chasing after things that are heavenly? Storing that is bad is when we desire, listen to this, indulgence. Enjoying all the ways that God has prospered us at the expense of sharing our resources for the good of others. Storing that is good is when we desire sacrifice. That's our heart posture. Forgoing a level of enjoyment, choosing to have a little less so others can have just enough. Choosing to have a little less so that others can have just enough. Do we think that Jesus meant what he said when he said to you and me, store up your treasures in heaven? Listen to these thoughts. Have you come to grips with the reality that everything that God has blessed you with was never intended for just your enjoyment? God, listen to this is so good. God could have just given everybody exactly what they needed, but that's not what he did. He gave some of what belongs to others to each of us so that we would have the opportunity to give it away. He could have just given everybody what they needed and not made sharing and generosity part of the world. But that's not what he did. He said, I'm going to give you what you need, and then I'm going to give some of what other people need to you so that you have the opportunity to give it away. Why would he do that? See, so when doing so through the act of self-sacrifice, the act of generosity, we become more like Jesus, which is heavenly. How is it that how is that storing treasures in heaven, you ask? Because the currency that drives the economy of heaven is virtue. And generosity is certainly one of those. He invites us into this life of generosity and sharing and sacrifice. He's given to you some of the things that belong to the church and others, right? That's a longer list, sometimes longer than what we prefer, so that we can give those things away. And then other people are giving in turn sometimes to us. And then all of a sudden, generosity is a virtue that begins to build in my life. One of those 24 virtues that we teach. And then we become more like Christ. And even if we enter into heaven not materially wealthy, we can enter into heaven a billionaire when it comes to character. When you cross that threshold, regardless of how rich or poor you were with material things in this life, our hope is that because you were connected to this church, because you were connected to this community, that you are a person of great wealth when it comes to the character of Christ. And that part of that is because you were a person that was challenged to be generous and to give things away. I'm going to put some of these slides up here just to give you a snapshot. This was an incredible year for us financially as a church. this is part of, I'm going to do some of this now for the remainder of my time, and then we'll break, and then we'll move into the business meeting that's in greater detail. But we do this, if you've been a part of our church for any amount of time, we do this once a quarter as a church, once a quarter in the service. We just give a snapshot to where we are because of what we believe about transparency. And then we also want to celebrate, right, your generosity. And so on the left column there, you see there's 4 quarters in a year. So I show you what the actual giving is, what the budgeted giving is, and then we have a metric that we use of giving per person. We always want that number to be above 150. And that number was above 150 almost the whole year, which is awesome, right? Which is awesome. And so our total budgeted giving for 2026, which if you're here for the business meeting later, you're going to see is 507,484. So our quarterly giving will need to be 126,871. The only way we get to there is if you buy into this idea of what we've been talking about tonight. You understand what I'm saying to you? That there are things that you have that don't belong to you that belong to other people. And because of what we believe, which I'm going to talk about practically what that looks like in 2 weeks, is that you're a part of making this possible so that this can continue to happen. Right? Let's look at the next one. This is missions. Missions giving for us as a church is unique because every dollar goes right back out. We keep nothing here. Is there mission stuff that we do locally? It is, but it needs to be outreach missions oriented, right? We're not taking designated missions money and using it to, say, replace a broken refrigerator, right? All that comes out of the operating budget. 100% of your missions giving, if you designate missions, 100% of it goes to missions. So we ask people to not only to give to the general operating budget through tithing, which we'll talk about in 2 weeks, but we also ask, as Justin said, that you're going to every month have a specific amount that you say, I'm going to give this money to missions every single month above my other giving. And then on top of that, where we talk about this annual pledge, we do it as a family, is that you pray that God's going to give you a dollar amount. You don't even know what it is, but that you say, God, when you give me this unexpected money, that I'm also going to give that to missions. And that's been a long-standing practice. So we have a monthly amount we give, and usually at some point in the year, we receive some type of financial blessing that we weren't expecting, right? And we go, oh, God is giving us this to give to missions. You tracking with me? And so our whole church does this. And look at the jump from 2023, 2025 and 2024, it dipped a little, but not much, right? We've increased missions giving as a congregation by almost $10,000. Right? It's incredible. It's incredible. And so let's go to the next slide. In the beginning of 2025, $1,600 a month we gave out through monthly support to missionaries and missions organizations. By the end of 2025, let's look at the next one. And going into 2026, that's gone up to $2,500 a month, right? Because of your giving. You see, unfolding word is on there, right? There's different amounts for different groups, right? And the governance team helps us, right? We bring this to them, and then Pastor Justin with what he does for overseeing missions. Now, you might say, well, Fred, $2,500 a month is $30,000 a year, but $42,000 came in. Where does that extra money go? And what we do with the extra money is we do big projects with that. So last year, we were able to send $10,000 to Niger, Africa to build a new well at a new church and a school that's being built there through Effective Ministries, Niger, right, which we support them at $500 a month. We're a giving partner for them. And then we also sent $10,000 through a person that we know in Haiti to build a home for a family in need. So we want our total giving to always surpass this list because we want to build the reserve so that we can step in and also do some big things. Does that make sense? And so your missions giving did all of that last year. It's so good. Let's do the next one. Capital improvements. And I tell people this building was given to us in 2019. If you don't know that story, we'll tell another time. Incredible story. It came to us debt-free. All the contents of the building, 5 acres, 40,000 square feet of usable space, right in this Riverside community, right behind CNU. You understand the value of that, right? It is millions upon millions of dollars of value. It came to us debt-free. It is not expense-free. It is old. Things break. Just a couple of weeks ago, after you all had gone home, and Ryan Nicholson and I were still here, and we came out later, we realized the main sewer line of the church had backed up. And while you were watching your favorite show, eating pizza, Ryan and I were up to our ankles in your poop and toilet paper. Right? Those are things that we need to fix, right? We do not want to pass this building on to the next generation dilapidated. We want to pass this facility on to the next generation thriving. And so we don't want to just fix the things that are broken. We want to get ahead of things. So in 2024, this is above our operating budget. In addition to that $500,000, another $131,415 was spent. Let's go to the next slide. In 2025, we spent $42,000. We slowed down a little bit. But this coming year, let's look at 2026. These are things that need to happen. We've already started on the windows, and all of these other things. And we know that there's things that are going to come to this list that are going to break that we don't even know yet, right? Because it's an old facility. We're going to raise this money this year. So I'm letting you know now, right, in this moment, so that you can be thinking and praying, because every few years, we don't do this every year, but every few years, we're going to come together and we're going to raise money to do some of the improvements that need to happen. So for 2026, we're saying if you call this your church home, that you're going to store up your treasures in heaven. Right? That you have the amount that you give, that's your monthly tithe, that you're going to have your missions giving that you do, and then this year there's going to be an extra. That we're trusting that God's going to provide for you some resources that you're going to in turn give to this capital improvement fund. Or you might say, I already have those resources, Fred. I know some of you walked today, you were already praying, you had some money, you were trying to figure out what you're going to do with it. And now you're like, praise the Lord. Now I know, right? Praise the Lord. And so, because when you flush the toilet, you want it to work, right? Yes. Otherwise, there's just going to be a bank of porta potties outside, right? I know that, right? But that's the right. We are responsible to steward this space. Responsible to steward this space for people. It's a sacred responsibility. And so we're saying now, be prepared this year. Talk about it. If you're married, with your spouse, with your family, how you're going to help us reach that number. And then we'll talk more practically as we move forward for how we're going to do it. Do I have another one? Is that it, April? That's it. All right, 601, stand with me. Jesus. Find us faithful, Lord. Find us faithful. We know that there are churches all over the world having conversations just like this all the time. But this is the conversation that you've given to us because this is the responsibility that you have assigned to us. And we know that you did not entrust us. You did not entrust us in 2019 with this incredible facility, Lord, because you weren't sure whether or not we were going to be able to do it. We know, God, that all of the resources that this church needs to thrive and to create a space for the 3 other churches that are here and the other partner organizations are here that we donate space to for them to thrive, that you have tasked us with the responsibility to be the caretaker of the space. And we know, God, that if you made us the caretaker of the space, it means that you have already put into every household that calls this their church home everything that this church needs in order to thrive. That all of the resources, Lord, we don't have to wonder where those resources are. We know where they are. They're in all of our own households. And so help us, Lord, as we steward our own finances, that we remember that not everything that we have belongs to us, that you have given to each of us some things that belong to other people. And find us, Lord, giving those things away. In Jesus' name, come on, and everybody said, amen.